Okay. Oh my gosh, that's loud. Okay. Well, welcome to, I guess, class 1 of the, I don't know, what do we call this lecture series? Because we're going to have to cut this part, right? Trim it? I don't know. The
Sunday School Year 2 Prophets Context Lectures, I don't know.
Sunday School Year 2 Prophets Context Lectures. Sure. So this lecture will be about the book of Joshua. So the book of Joshua picks up immediately after the death of Moses. It was written over a period of hundreds of years, so there have been many authors and many editions. This is within 3 verses of the end of the book of Deuteronomy, and the Israelites bewailed Moses in the steppes of Moab for 30 days. The period of wailing and mourning for Moses came to an end. Now Joshua, son of Nun, was filled with the spirit of wisdom because Moses had laid his hands upon him, and the Israelites heeded him, doing as the Lord had commanded Moses. Now, because, let's see, this is terrible. There are theories that Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and Kings were once all edited together in a single book. And the book of Joshua does share a lot of the language and ideas, but is written in the narrative prose style, with Joshua as the main character, rather than the first-person poetic style that was Deuteronomy. Because Joshua was written and revised over such a long period of time, there are different influences on the style depending on which section you're reading. And after you finish this lecture, I encourage you to look into Joshua further and do some reading because it is extremely layered and worth your time. Most of the sources I found did agree that the book of Joshua was divided into 2 distinct parts that were joined at some point. The first part, the book of conquest, is chapters 1 through 12, and the book of settlement was chapters 13 through 21. The last 3 chapters give some closure to what seem like loose ends, like sending the tribes home, and an admonishment at the end of Joshua's life, similar to what Moses gave at the end of his life, telling the Israelite people that he expects them to follow God, but he knows that they won't. Now, the book of Joshua is often referred to as a historical text, and it gives us the opportunity to practice viewing documents such as these with different lenses. Our concept of historical documentation is a relatively modern one, especially when it comes to thinking about texts this old. When the book of Joshua was written, historical documents were most often used to communicate expected or appropriate behavior, actions, or aspirations for society by the people who were literate and in charge of the dissemination of information. The book of Joshua depicts an organized and militarily strong people who conquered city after city, following a leader blessed by God into the promised land. However, the archaeology indicates that early Israelites probably settled Canaan more slowly, beginning in unpopulated areas. So, do we throw the whole historical document out the window? No, absolutely not. Whether the book of Joshua happened exactly as it was written or not, it's still history that has affected us, our ancestors, and will continue to affect our children long after we're gone. What Joshua has recorded is a people of high spirit and hopes that loved God, but needed reminding of their covenant from time to time, which is probably as accurate as any historical document any of us have read. The book of Joshua begins when Moses dies, circa 1270 BCE, with the words, "After the death of Moses, the servant of God, God said to Joshua," and follows with instructions from God that Joshua will lead the Israelite people into the promised land. Now, the next section, we are going to talk about the Musar values of faith versus fear, or emunah versus pachad. This is a reading that we're familiar with from the Mishkan Tefillah, bracketed page 149. And it's something that we can relate to now, and probably something that the Israelites were wondering as they stood uncertain on the border of light after Moses died. They had valid reasons to have both faith and to be fearful when Joshua took over. And I invite you to consider some of the things that they might have been fearful about, and some of the reasons they might have had to remain faithful. Once Moses died, they observed Shloshim, so they observed a period of mourning for 30 days for Moses, which is only the second time that Shloshim was observed in the Bible, the first time being for Aaron after his death. And once they did that, the people who were of soldiering age were selected and marched to the shores of the Jordan, where they camped for another 3 days. There was a whole bunch of waiting, and probably added to the fear and uncertainty. For the soldiers, they had something to busy their minds and their bodies with, but the women and children, we're told, waited until the men, quote, gained possession of the land in Joshua 1:15. So that's telling us that the women and children had to wait where they were on the other side of the Jordan until the men returned to tell them that the entire promised land had been conquered and claimed for them. Now, something to consider when we are thinking about dealing with faith versus fear and how to cultivate faith in the face of fear is, what are some healthy ways of handling change and managing fear? And some of the ways that Jews have historically done that are through songs, poetry, Torah study, complaining, and closing ranks. Being thankful for what has gone right and thanking God in advance for the preferred outcome or the aspirational nature of some of our prayers are some of the most notable things. And we can find those in the Psalms. If you have a Mishkan Tefillah handy, you'll find the Psalms beginning on page 561 in the brackets. Psalm 114 is one to take particular note of. This one talks about leaving Egypt and following God's dominion. It also talks about the sea, seeing them and fleeing, which is an obvious reference to the Sea of Reeds, but then talks about the Jordan running backward, which leads us into the next section of our lecture, which is avodah, or miracles. Now, in the book of Joshua, there are some notable miracles, such as the falling of the walls of Jericho or the sun standing still for an entire day. But one of the miracles that a lot of people don't know about is that of the Jordan standing in a heap. So basically, when the troops were ready to cross the Jordan, the river split, much like the Sea of Reeds. And that's something that is interesting about the book of Joshua, because many of the events that happened during Moses' time as the leader of the Israelite people happen for and at the hands of Joshua, but kind of in reverse order. And this is one of them. But the river Jordan stood in a heap in Joshua 3:13, like the Sea of Reeds. So this psalm is celebrating the Jordan running backward, the mountains skipping like rams, the hills like sheep. And so this is a celebration of things that went right and was possibly written in a time of uncertainty to recall the things that have gone right and the things that can go right in the future. Now, when thinking about miracles, it's tempting to think about the big things like the river Jordan splitting or the Sea of Reeds or any of the massive miracles that are in the Bible. But these things I can move. I opened my eyes. I have earth to stand on. They don't seem like miracles. But when we look at them in a different context, such as this one, which is from the Mishkan Tefillah, pages 200 through 202, they go on beyond just these 2 pages. We can see that these are the Nisim B'chol Yom, or the daily miracles. So these are the prayers that are, or the blessings that are said every morning to thank God for the miracle of being a free person, or thanking God for purpose or for harmony. And these are things that the Israelite people, when they were waiting and unsure and afraid of the future, may have tried to hold on to. For example, the last time the Israelites had manna was while they were waiting to cross the Jordan. It was probably a completely run-of-the-mill or even boring meal. However, they had been complaining so much about manna and how tired they were of it that it probably seemed like the best meal they had ever had. This is a reminder that we can also keep these boring and mundane miracles in the forefront of our minds. So the next thing that I want to cover is a kind of a minor character in the book of Joshua. Her name is Rahab, and she may not be someone that you have had any interactions with. She's described as a harlot, and she was approached by 2 spies that Joshua sent into the city of Jericho. I have a short video. Okay.
And it's on, and I've gotta be the hero now. The baton has been passed to me to lead the crowd. It's time to fight my fears, to be courageous and strong. It's time to be a hero now.
So this is the land of Israel.
Okay, let's get spying. Hi there, Jerichoans. If you were an invading army, how would you invade?
Are you crazy?
I'm trying to gather information.
But we're spies. We need to act like we're just here on holiday. Grab some food. Gain their trust. Have some fun.
Come with me if you want to live.
Nice place you got here.
We're just here to have some fun. You must be mistaking us for...
You're the Israelite spies. The king's soldiers are all over town looking for you.
But we came in secret.
There are 500,000 of you camped just across the river. You call that secret?
It's sort of secret.
You want information about Jericho? I'll tell you all you need.
Who are you?
You'd probably call me a harlot, but I'm just a girl who wants to survive. This used to be a great city. For hundreds of years, it thrived. The people were rich and the city prospered. But the people got greedy and the city became weak. And now this is where we live.
Thanks for the history lesson.
You'll have an easy victory. Destroy the city's walls. Behind them, we're all weak and hungry. This city died long ago.
I don't get it. Are you gonna turn us in?
No. All I ask is, when you come to destroy Jericho, save my family.
On our lives, we will.
It's the guards. Hide yourselves. I'll convince them to leave. You can stay here till morning.
Joshua! Are you in there?
Josh, we're back. We've got information.
Tell me. They're weak. We should attack now.
Situation so familiar, but now I'm on the other side. No longer following, I'm charged to lead and guide. Searching for the perfect answer, seeking out the path to take. Wondering if our resolve will remain strong or break. And it's on. It's time to be a hero now.
So from this video, we learned that Rahab was a harlot who helped the Israelites, spies who came into the city ahead of the invasion. Now, one thing to think about with Rahab is that she was not an Israelite. She did not believe in, or was not raised to believe in the God of Israel. So, and in Joshua 2, the chapter that she makes her appearance, she says that she's doing it because she does believe that the God of Israel is on the right track, basically. But something to consider is, does her profession have any bearing on the way that she assisted the soldiers? Did it make her more willing to help them out and to assist in the defeat of Jericho? Also, do you think that her occupation influenced the actions or the views of the Israelites when they came to her for help? In my opinion, I think yes. I think that it's yes on both accounts. She would have been someone who was approachable by a wider variety of society. She also would have been someone who would have spoken to people who came to her door unannounced. In the story, wasn't covered in this video, she asked for protection for her family in exchange for hiding the Israelite spies. And they promised that they would if she and her family stayed in her house the whole time, which we learned was built into the wall of the city of Jericho. And she was instructed to tie a red cord outside of the window, which was outside, so it would have been on the external wall of the city of Jericho. But when the wall is destroyed, somehow her family and she escaped unharmed, which is another miracle that we can it's not really identified as such, but in my opinion, it's another miracle that we can add to the tally in the book of Joshua. Because Midrash tells us that she and her family went on to join the Israelite people and fully assimilated. So lastly, we have Joshua, our main role model. Now, in Numbers, Joshua makes an appearance early on. So in Exodus 17, Joshua is one of the 12 spies that are chosen by Moses to go into Canaan to explore and then report back about what they find. He then became the assistant and protege of Moses, essentially. And so that's all precursor to him taking over after Moses' death. In Numbers 11:28, we find out that Joshua was Moses' assistant from his youth. And so he was most likely chosen because his character, leadership skills, and accomplishments were well known to God and to the people, so there wouldn't have been a whole lot of pushback from anyone, any side, about his fitness to lead. And his acceptance as the leader would have been extremely important. Now, something to consider as far as Joshua is concerned was he had a military background, but he also had a reputation for being a Torah scholar. He was waiting patiently for Moses to descend from Sinai when he went to get the commandments. He was very devoted in his study. So he was his job after Moses' passing was to help the Israelite people move forward but maintain their connections to the past and to follow mitzvot. And so in order to do that, he would need a very specialized set of skills. And so because his background was military and Torah skills, Torah study, I invite you to consider how each of those would have given him the necessary skill set to provide that link going forward while maintaining the ties to the past. One of the first things that God says to Joshua when he hands over the reins to him at the beginning of the book is, "Be strong and resolute." And that is something that Joshua repeats to the people multiple times. And so I want to leave you with this quote: "I charge you, be strong and resolute. Do not be terrified or dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." Thank you.